Welcome to another episode of Tell Me Where I'm Going Wrong. In this week's episode, the hosts recall the mortifyingly embarrassing story of a night on a canal boat and a blocked toilet. Sean also explains how his CPAP machine is forcing him to wear makeup, and he gives Josh some of his hot tips. Finally, they end with a discussion about Luigi Mangione and whether violence and murder ever have a place in the fight for social justice. Enjoy the ride.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Tell Me Where I'm Going Wrong. I'm Sean and that's Josh, and together we are two exes who are really good friends. Some might say best friends, some others might not. Go back to a few episodes ago, maybe the first episode, if you want to find out the story behind that. But we talk on this podcast about whatever we want to talk about: life, pop culture, health, holidays, weather.
Minogues.
The appalling state of the London transport system, which kept everyone riveted in the last episode. So, Josh, how are you doing?
I'm okay, thanks. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm wearing headphones for the first time.
I know. You caught up with the 19th century.
Well, because the sound quality, if you are a regular listener or viewer of this podcast, you'll know that the sound quality is not one of our best features of the podcast.
Along with research.
Public speaking skills.
If you've come for well-researched topics presented with good sound quality, then you may have to go elsewhere.
So anyway, the sound was so bad in all the episodes, particularly my audio. So we're trying to work out if this will help at all. So Josh has very kindly let me borrow these headphones. I mean, do you ever want these back? Can I have these for her now?
No, you can have. I purchased some new ones. I didn't tell you, and I'm only telling you now, live on air, that that the headphones are cursed. No, I'm joking. They're not cursed. But the sort of the PVC lining that goes across the headband bit is disintegrating slowly. So you probably will find after we finish recording today that you'll have little bits of like black PVC dotted around your head and the sides of your face. I didn't tell you that beforehand.
Okay.
So, just be warned.
Okay.
But that's why I bought myself a new pair of headphones, basically.
Well, thank you for the second-hand.
You're very welcome.
Also, what people watching this won't know, but when we record this, we can see both of us on the screen. Mm-hmm. We can see two screens, similar to what the viewers can see if you're watching it on YouTube or Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
But I have them so there's one screen above and one screen below. Like I don't have them side by side. But every time we've ever done it, I have been at the top. But for some reason, you're at the top.
I don't know why. I mean, I always have them side by side, so I don't. It's the same.
I've just dragged it. I can change it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
There you go.
I didn't know that I could drag me to the top and then reorder the squares. Well, that's...
Wow, fascinating content.
I'm learning new stuff every day. Now, listen, I can just see that I've got some makeup here.
All right, yes.
It is vegan makeup from Superdrug because there's a bit of a it's not really a middle-aged health concern. I suppose anyone of any age can have this concern, but I have problems with, I'm just going to apply some makeup live on air.
Oh God, are we going to become a makeup tutorial podcast?
Are
you pushing it into every pore?
I'm pushing it into every pore. Now listen, I have to wear a CPAP machine. And if you don't know what a CPAP machine is, well, Google it, but I can quickly tell you. It's a machine that forces air into your airways to keep your airways open while you're asleep. Because for some people, it generally happens to people who are overweight, but it doesn't necessarily only have to be for people who are overweight. But while you're sleeping, your airways can close temporarily and you stop breathing.
Mm-hmm. And that's known as sleep apnea.
Sleep apnea. So I believe that most humans stop breathing. This is what the doctor told me, that most humans stop breathing about 7 to 9 times an hour. But people with sleep apnea, that
Really?
is, yeah, like just temporarily. You know, you know yourself if you've ever slept next to someone. I mean, obviously, you remember sleeping next to me, and I would be spluttering and carrying on to an extreme level. But if you've ever slept next to anybody who sleeps like non-sleep apnea sleep, it sometimes sounds like they've stopped breathing just for a beat, you know, because they're normally breathing on like a rhythm. So in, out, and then suddenly it might just stop, 1, 2, and then they start again, right? So that's just your body does that, but your body has an automated system to kick in to keep you breathing, but it can just stop now and then. Like your body relaxes.
I get so like I hate when you become conscious of something that your body just does subconsciously, or it's like or whatever it's called, like automated tasks that your body does. I hate when you sort of start hyper focusing on things like your heartbeat or your breathing, and then suddenly you're so like hyper vigilant about it.
Or walking. Have you ever been walking down the street and you start freaking out like, hey, how are my feet knowing to move, like my legs? How are my legs?
Totally,
like I'm not thinking that I want to walk. I'm not saying walk,
fashion baby. Make that bitch crazy.
You know, I'm not thinking walk. I'm just somehow walking, and that sometimes freaks me out.
Yeah.
But anyway,
or even talking, even now, like when you think about how this is probably not very engaging content, but you know, just the fact that I'm, without really any conscious thought about it, words are just flowing from my brain, you know, coordinating my lungs, my vocal folds, my lips, my mouth, my tongue, everything. It's just, it starts to really freak me out.
And look, if I do this with this makeup, I'm not thinking about pushing it into every pore, but somehow I am pushing it into every pore.
I know.
But
amazing.
My sleep report, I had to go and do a sleep study where I went to the hospital and they gave me these wires and these sensors, and I had to come home and strap them all over my body and go to sleep, and it will record my...
You told us about this on the pod.
But this is just a recap for anyone who didn't listen.
A recap of the CPAP.
Recap CPAP, because some people don't pay attention. Some people might not have seen that. Might have been one of the historically low viewership episodes. So just giving people a recap. But the result of that was I was given this machine that is called the CPAP machine, and it fits over. It's in the other room, or I should have worn it on the show. Maybe that would have been fascinating for people. But the way that it fits on, you have these straps that go over your head and they hold it on place, almost like a helmet. And it has to be a certain tightness or firmness so the air doesn't escape out the side. And I've found out over the last few nights of using it that it has been really leaving red marks that take all day or never go away. Like take all day to go away and never go away. And this morning, it is the reddest, sorest mark on my nose and down here. It looks like I've been punched in the face. And so I went to Superdrug, because Superdrug famously has a lot of their own brand stuff that is suitable for vegans. And being a vegan, I won't even wear makeup that is tested on animals or includes animal ingredients. And so I've been watching, for years, I've watched makeup tutorials on YouTube. And do you watch them as well?
I do not, no.
Have you ever watched a makeup tutorial?
I've tried. It doesn't interest me very much. I remember Jeffree Star was... I mean, when would Jeffree Star have been making content like that?
Well, probably he still does.
But when did he start? Well, it was like 10 to 15 years ago, maybe? I actually don't know.
But he's cancelled now, Sue.
Oh, right, okay. Well, I don't pay attention.
Problematic. But I watch...
Wait, sorry. Can I just clarify? Yeah. Am I misremembering? Jeffree Star is the lead Britney Alone? No, that's someone else.
No. That's
God, my pop culture is all
lead
over the shop.
Britney Alone was Chris.
Oh yeah,
I forget Chris's last name. And I remember. I think he might have transitioned. Like she transitioned. I think she's a woman now. I believe so.
I was going to say I thought that when they were still identifying as he, they did some porn or something.
Yeah, they were doing porn.
Yeah.
Okay. Chris Crocker.
Chris Crocker. But sorry, so Jeffree Star, how did Jeffree Star become sort of, how did I hear about Jeffree Star? Where did he come from? What was he
Jeffree
known
Star,
for initially?
we've gone right off track. I
I
didn't
know.
get to
So
finish
it's
my
supposed to be
CPAP,
the CPAP recap.
CPAP recap. But anyway, Jeffree Star became very famous on MySpace. So you can remember it was before he would wear makeup, but he didn't have his own makeup line or anything. It was before that celebrity makeup line sensation took over the internet. But he did used to release music. Do you remember he did that cover of that Pussycat Dolls song? Don't ya? And then he also sold merchandise. It was around the time where like Hot Topic and emo kids were like really big, and he used to sell like posters and T-shirts, and he would sell limited edition like colored vinyl, and he was huge. Like he was like I think the most followed person on MySpace at one point, apart from Tom, the founder of MySpace. But not followed. Yeah, they weren't. It wasn't. You didn't follow people.
Friends. Yeah.
Friends with people on MySpace. And so Jeffree Star was really famous for that. And then as content started to become long form content and YouTube became a thing, he started to become super famous on YouTube, and then started doing makeup. Yeah, and he used to be a makeup artist for some people. I think maybe he used, for a while, he was doing makeup for Peaches on her tour.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so then he started his own makeup company, and he became hugely successful and incredibly rich. I mean, super rich. And but he is very problematic, and I won't get into saying what he does or why he's problematic. If anyone wants to look it up, there are countless videos online of YouTube of people like calling him out and saying why he's problematic.
Okay.
But anyway, so I used to watch some of Jeffree Star videos until he was ridiculous and I couldn't watch them anymore. But I watch a lot of, do you know Nikki tutorials?
No.
She is a trans woman who was outed as trans while she was already famous, while she was probably one of the top 5 most famous makeup artists on YouTube, by a boyfriend or an ex-boyfriend, or someone was going to tell people that she was a trans woman. And so she did a video. And I was, not that I should ever know anybody's personal history, but I was so blindsided because I watched her like twice a week, and I had no concept of like her trans identity or her history. And it was such a huge thing. And then, of course, she's got her own makeup line. She became even more famous. She's done videos with Gaga. And I have watched, I don't know how many hundreds of hours of content by some of these people that I think I understand a little bit about makeup. And so when I went into Superdrug before, also I watched Trixie Mattel videos. I went into Superdrug and I knew that I wanted a cover-up foundation, like a liquid foundation. I wanted a pressed powder to go over the top of it to help set it. And then, because I'm going to be on camera and I want it to really settle down, I knew that I needed this matte setting spray to hold it in place, and also to just give it a softer, like matter look. So I knew that those 3 products would be enough to cover, and I don't think you can see it, right? That red on my nose in the middle.
I think when you turn to the side, I could get a maybe.
You can see a little bit there, but it was like this is just my knowledge from watching these ridiculous makeup videos.
All those
for
hours
years.
of your life have finally come to fruition.
Yeah, so I had the, I don't know what this is called. I don't know, whatever the stick is, like the liquid.
You're not going to cut it as a professional makeup tutorial YouTuber.
Oh, and see, I know that I've got to, when I show the products, this is what the professionals do. They hold it in front of their hand so you can the camera focuses and you can really see.
That's so professional. Wow.
But what's great about Superdrug is it's inexpensive and it's
Yeah,
all
I love
suitable
Superdrug.
and
I
it's
love Superdrug.
suitable for vegans as well. So I
Well, now
also
I feel
I
like
also
I'm
bought my
gonna.
face wash.
Oh yeah, I just bought some of that the other day. I now I feel the pressure to step up, and I should start wearing makeup. Perhaps. I
Well,
mean,
I
not
don't.
for this episode, obviously, but
I used to wear makeup when I was a kid, like when I was a teenager. Like I used to go out to nightclubs when I was 15, 16, 17, wearing makeup. And I never knew how to put it on. Like, there was no Trixie Mattel or Jeffree Star back in the late 80s telling me, oh, press powder this, setting spray that.
push it
We
into
would
every pore.
push it into every pore. Should we tell the story of why we keep saying that?
No, no.
Okay.
There is a story I want to tell today because we referenced it in last week's episode, and that's the one about the shit-eating swans. Because I feel like we can't we couldn't drop a spoiler like that or an Easter egg, if you like,
Well,
without
can we
explaining
just,
the full story.
before
But
we do that though, can we just finalize makeup
the
discussion?
CPAP recap.
Well, we've got two conversations going now. We've got CPAP recap and makeup hysteria, as I'm calling it. Did you used to wear makeup as a kid?
Occasionally, yeah. I mean, I still do. Like when I perform and I'm on stage, I put makeup on, but I don't know what I'm doing with it. So maybe you could give me a few pointers. And I used to. Do you remember when we lived in Mexico City and I had my friend Ivan and I had a vegan ice cream business, and we would go to the vegan market once a month and sell our vegan ice cream, and I
Yeah.
would wear makeup for that
Why?
because I thought, I'm there trying to spruik a product. I'm sort of calling out to people, come and try this, and I just felt like it was like a performance for me. So I think, makeup is, when you're performing and when you're deliberately looking to get people's attention, I
Yeah.
put makeup on in those sorts of situations. So
And do you do you have any interest in like different makeup brands or like
no,
what
I mean,
what
as long as
makeup?
it's as long as it's vegan, that's the only thing I know. And I probably would benefit from doing a bit of research or having a bit more knowledge because I'm using products that I've had knocking around for about 10 years. Like, I mean, it's a bit ridiculous, but I just I do a very, very rudimentary job.
Well, I think if you start to get into makeup a bit more, you've got to. It's okay, I think, to use older makeup, but you've got to really be on top of like cleaning your skin and making sure that you're treating your skin properly. And
Well, I'm
I,
I'm very good at that, like cleaning it all off, and I have quite a thorough skincare routine anyway. But yeah,
but there's like some videos, like people like Trixie or some other drag queens have done it as well. They'll do their boy drag makeup tutorials. So, you can watch them put their drag makeup on, but they'll also show you what they do just to go out to, I don't know, go shopping at Gelson's Farm or something. They'll put on a certain amount of makeup for their day look as out of drag day look. And it's
okay.
interesting because they'll show you how to use. Like that's how I knew to use some of these products. Because even like a setting spray is normally used for when you've got a lot of makeup on, but it can help, especially a matte finish, can just help it make it look more natural and not shiny. But yeah, like it's interesting. I'm really interested in makeup as an art form, but like
I
imagine putting on the amount of makeup that someone like I don't know Trixie or Bianca Del Rio or Bob the Drag Queen wears.
I
Imagine like
know, I
2 hours in makeup.
I'm
For some
really
people,
fascinated. I haven't watched any makeup tutorials, so to speak, but I have watched a few things just when I've been doom scrolling on Instagram. I've come across some of those channels where people use makeup to turn themselves into like a famous celebrity,
yeah,
and it's so incredible how the right makeup applied in the right way can completely transform someone into someone else.
yeah.
I find that quite fascinating. But yeah.
So anyway, well, that was a long story to tell you. That's why I've got makeup on is because of the CPAP machine scarring my face, and I don't know what to do about it because I have to wear it. It makes a really big difference. Like Hill has said that I've stopped snoring completely when I wear it. Like,
Wow.
I mean, and you know how bad my snoring was. Like, I've had people in neighboring like apartments or hotel rooms complain about my snoring.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. There are different types of masks you can get for the CPAP machine that fit different ways. Like some that just go over your mouth, some that just go over in your nose. But the one that I've got from the NHS covers my mouth and nose.
Maybe you can get a separate mask that's compatible with your machine and do it
try
that
it
way.
out. Yeah.
There's probably like Facebook groups and stuff like that for CPAP users.
Well, do you know there's a real fetish in the gay community, in the bear community, around CPAP because it's normally overweight people, like I was saying. So a lot of chubby middle-aged men wear them, and so there's like a bit of a subset of kink going on around.
Is there like CPAP porn?
Yeah,
really,
like 100%, and like people who are into guys sending them photos of them wearing their CPAP machine or like being sexual wearing their CPAP masks and stuff.
Wow. Okay.
Isn't that wild?
That's wild. That is wild. Well, thanks for the explanation. I think I'll start wearing makeup for the podcast then because I don't want to appear, washed out and.
But do some research though.
Okay. Well, I might be asking you for some tips.
Well, I don't know a lot, but honestly, if you search some of these boy drag or out of drag day makeup from drag queens, it's handy, and you wouldn't have to wear everything that everyone else wears because you might not want to wear that much. But and I think also makeup can also be a part of or can contribute to skincare. Because a lot of the products these days are very nourishing for your skin, or they've got.
I think there's a lot of, what would you call it? Because when some, the terms pink washing, green washing, what would you call it with makeup? Anyway, I think there's a lot of stuff out there. Things like tinted moisturizers and stuff. I've read, they're not tinted moisturizers, they're just foundation, but they give it a name to make it sound as if it's actually of some benefit to your skin.
But I think sometimes what's overlooked with this sort of thing is the mental health benefits for people. So, for some people, it's part of their process of making themselves feel nurtured or more attractive or cared for. And so the idea, or like something, for instance, covering this blemish on my nose, I was very self-conscious about. Like, honestly, it looked like I had been in a bar fight. And it's now made me feel comfortable to sit on camera and be filmed and be seen by tens of people on camera. And so I think when we talk about the wellness or contributing to your wellness, I think it can be
from that angle, yes.
The mental or like the self-esteem for some people. But there are some products that are also nourishing to the skin. But yeah, a lot of it is absolute horse manure in that, the claims that they make, just like most stuff we buy in the world.
Yeah. So there are two things I wanted to talk about today. The first one I've already mentioned, that's the episode of the shit-eating swans, because I feel like, we just dropped it into the end of the conversation last week, and we should, given that it's, Christmas has just happened, we should talk about the shit-eating swans. So I wanted to talk about that, but then afterwards, I'm just putting out, I would like, if we have time, I would like to talk a little bit about Luigi Mangione, because
Is it Mangione or Mangione?
Mangione? I don't know. I don't know if I don't speak Italian, but I'm saying it the way I think it should be.
I don't speak German, but I can if you like.
So should we tell the shit-eating swans thing first, because we did mention it last week.
I think we should, and then we should try and seamlessly segue into Luigi Mangione somehow. So
I don't know how long ago this was. Between 10 and 15 years. No, I don't know.
You think that long?
Maybe not. Anyway, it was a long time ago. And it was, Sean and I were living in West London, and our friend had invited us over. This was in the vegan community. So vegan friends had invited us over to East London, and one of them had hired a canal boat, a longboat.
I think you're already getting the story wrong.
What do you mean?
They didn't hire it. It was the friend's boat. You know what I mean? It was somebody who'd gone away
No,
for the week.
they rented it from someone.
I don't think they did.
No, they did. Anyway, well, let's not quibble
Let's
about
just
that.
say there was a longboat.
There was a longboat, which is a canal boat, stationary. So not a boat that like actually moves around, but it's just stationed in a dockside canal location. So we went over. I made a vegan cheese dip or something like that with cashew nuts. Anyway, we went over. There were probably between 6 and 10 of us on the boat. We were drinking. We were eating.
It was an anti-Christmas event.
And this was Christmas Eve. So I think we got public transport over because famously on Christmas Day, there's no public transport in London. So Christmas Eve, we got public transport over. We started drinking, we were eating, drinking. There was asparagus being consumed, which is relevant later on in the story. And it got to, I don't know, 1 a.m. perhaps. And there was only one double bed on the boat. But our friends who'd invited us, they lived in an apartment probably less than a 5-minute walk away, not far away. And so they said, look, 2 people can crash here on the boat and everyone else can come back to the flat and crash there. So Sean and I volunteered. We said, yeah, we'll stay on the boat.
You said you didn't want to. And I pressured you and said, I really want to. It'll be fun to sleep on the narrow boat.
Mm-hmm. I bet you came to regret that later. But then we wouldn't have this amazing story to tell. So anyway, it was late. It was after 1 a.m. People left. Sean and I went to bed, and it was an old boat. It hadn't been renovated in quite some time. Bear in mind that the party had gone on for at least 4 or 5 hours, and in the bathroom there was like what's known as a cassette toilet, which is basically just a box with a toilet seat over the top and a sort of a flap that it's just gravity activated. So when someone goes to the toilet, the flap goes down and whatever they've done in the toilet goes into the cassette underneath. So it had been used all night. Like I said, asparagus had been consumed.
But can we just say, first of all, before we get to the cassette toilet, we went to sleep, and when we woke up on this boat, I had water dripping on my face.
Oh, that comes later, though. That's later in the story.
This is because the toilet is only after we woke up.
No, this was no. This was at like 1 a.m. after people had left. We went to bed, and then I was like, okay, I really need to take a shit. So I went to the toilet, and it stank already because people had been pissing in there all night and consuming asparagus. It was like asparagus piss smell. It was just rank. Anyway, I went to the toilet, and the flap did not go down, and I was like, oh shit, what am I going to do?
The flap wasn't flapping, Sue.
Flap wasn't flapping. It was the recap of the CPAP and the
flap wasn't flapping.
The flap and
reflap.
Like, what am I going to do? And so I feel really bad telling this story on air because it was reckless.
This was somebody's boat as well.
Well, fuck them because they clearly hadn't emptied the cassette toilet before they went away.
It was look. You just did the thumbs up on the screen.
Is that? I didn't know that happened on here. Now I won't do it. It won't do it now. I want to do it anyway. We digress. So it was probably about 2:30 in the morning by this point. There was a big turd sat in the toilet, wasn't going anywhere.
I think what's helping this story is your delightful use of language.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And I woke Sean up and I said, I don't know what to do, Sean. I can't just leave that like that. We have to sort it out. And so we started Googling on our phones what to do, and we've researched. We found out, we did some live research, surprisingly. We found out that cassette toilets need to be emptied every couple of days, and
if you don't, the flap won't flap.
And they said online, it said wherever your boat is stationed, there should be a waste disposal. So we were walking. This was like 2:00 in the morning in December in London. It was freezing cold. Walking up and down the canal side, looking.
This is Christmas Day, right?
Yeah, Christmas morning now, looking for Santa, and we were looking for a waste disposal. Couldn't find one anywhere, of course, and we were also really drunk as well. Actually, that was back
But
when
also,
Sean and I were drinking
I
loads.
don't know what we thought we were going to do if we found one, because the cassette toilet was so full. It was really heavy, right?
But we hadn't gotten to that stage yet. So then, after finding out that there was no disposal thing, we figured we would just. I hope this doesn't end up in court, like some environmental protection agency
Or the owner of the boat.
No, fuck the owner of the boat. So we were like, we're going to have to just tip it into the canal. And at the time, in our 2 o'clock in the morning drunk distress, we reasoned that, you know, everyone was vegan, and so it wasn't as bad as like throwing anyway, whatever. We decided we just needed to empty the things into the canal, the cassette into the canal, which is awful in retrospect, in hindsight, but we didn't know what else to do. So we then figured out that the cassette thing was so heavy and it stank, like I cannot explain how much it stank. And it was so heavy that we both needed to like take a side each and walk through the boat. It was also at the far end of the boat from the exit, so we had to walk through the boat. So there we are. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning by this point. We're in a
and at this stage, also, some had slopped out onto the rug that was on the toilet in the bathroom on the boat. So it had like sludge. Shitty blue sludge water, cassette toilet water.
So rank. We were in a flap, and so we're carrying this.
The flap wasn't flapping, but we were flapping.
Carrying this stench-ridden cassette through the boat, and then suddenly there's tap 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 on the window, and we look because the boat's set quite low. The windows were sort of at just above the water level,
like a porthole.
Yeah, a porthole. So there we are carrying this thing through, and tap 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 on the window. We look out, and there's this pair of swans like tapping on the window, and it was so bizarre. It was like they were sort of, I don't know, beckoning, calling, warning. I just don't know. It was such a strange event, and we were like, oh my god, it scared us so much. And so anyway, we carried on. We walked up onto the deck, and the swans, it was like almost this had happened before, and the swans knew what was coming, because whenever we took the cassette over to the side of the boat to tip some stuff into the canal, the swans would sort of like flap, and, you know, like they would sort of start pecking at the cassette. And we were like, what are we going to do? And so eventually we were just like, we're just going to have to just tip it. So we tipped it. This shit and piss and everything went into the canal. The swans started eating it. It was
my god,
so disgusting.
But they weren't just eating it; they were like fucking gulping it down, like gannets. They were like sucking it down out of the water, and it was a mixture of feces. I feel sick now.
Yeah, it's so disgusting. Apologies.
But it was also like
listeners.
some sort of blue liquid in the toilet.
Yeah,
there must have been some chemical to break down the waste.
Yeah, I guess.
And so it was bits of like clumps of toilet paper and feces, and these swans were like
asparagus piss and
like necking at it.
And so Sean's got a very weak. You've got a very weak stomach anyway. Like I've got quite a strong stomach. I can you know put up with a lot. But Sean was like retching. These swans were like pecking at the shit, and we were just like, when you're drunk and you stop drinking, but you're still awake, and that sort of the hangover starts kicking in before you've gone to sleep. And so we were just like, we just felt wretched, and we felt bad for having had to do that, but we had no option.
We had no toilet currently, and I really needed to do a wee, so I had to stand on the edge of the narrowboat and pee into the canal, and the swans were coming and snapping at my penis. I mean, they didn't bite it, obviously, but they were like coming up because it was more like waste product for them to gulp down, like the greedy gannets that they are.
that was that was Christmas morning, and so eventually we got to bed. It was like 3:30, 4 o'clock, and that is when we would like we just kept waking up through the night with water dripping on us, and we realized because well, probably exacerbated by the fact that there'd been a lot of like waste water on the floor of the boat as well, but just because the boat was so damp being a boat,
And it was cold
and it
outside.
was cold and there was no sort of good ventilation or anything like that. All
And
the
my
air
my
was
my sleep apnea and my heavy breathing.
yeah, all the condensation was just dripping down from the ceiling of the bedroom onto our faces. It was awful. And so I don't know what time it was the next morning after like just a few hours of sleep. We woke up and we went around to our friend's flat around the corner where everyone else had been asleep. And then I can't even remember the rest of it. Someone vomited there. I can't even
Yeah, that
remember, but
night when they all went back, someone had thrown up on the sofa or something.
oh,
But we told the story to everyone, and everyone was screaming, laughing.
I
But
mean, we were traumatized. It was
yeah,
so horrific, but
I
now I can
every
laugh
time I
about
see
it.
a swan, I think of that. All these years later,
Yeah.
and just shit-eating swans. And I think it was somebody at the party the next day who came up with the term shit-eating swans.
Oh, really?
Like,
Okay.
yeah, because it was I don't know
Was
who.
it Drew and Ian?
Yeah, I forget who else was
Was
there.
Lauren there? Australian Lauren?
I don't think so.
No.
But I can't remember who said, but someone said something about them having a shit-eating grin, the swans. Like someone
Uh,
said they'd been down to the canal and they said they wondered why the swans had a shit-eating grin.
well, that must have been in Australia. Oh, well, that might have been Drew because he's Australian, isn't he? Because shit eating grin famously made famous by Tony Abbott when he was talking about Julia Gillard.
Yeah, but people said that before him.
I
Like
know, but like as a sort of as a cultural
But do you think
reference,
that is like that's not a UK saying? Shit-eating
shit
grin?
eating grin. I don't think so. I actually don't recall having heard the expression before Tony Abbott used it. Well, I don't know. Yeah, you don't hear it very often. Shit-eating grin, do you?
It's very in
Maybe
Australia
it's
even.
a
It's very common. It's like it's not. It's seen as a common thing to say.
maybe it's a real Australianism then. Anyway,
Um,
so that was our shit-eating swans saga.
I mean, have
And
we explained what shit-eating grin means?
what
Like,
on this
can people work
podcast
out?
or
Yeah, like now in this conversation, like, do
no?
people know why we're saying it?
No.
Like, it's a vulgar slang saying, which
Hmm.
means like like smug or self-satisfied grin on your face. So
Hmm.
if you get away with something and you're really
Hmm.
pleased with yourself, you
Hmm.
might have a do. Can you do an example of a shit-eating grin?
I don't know. I don't really understand.
It's like
I okay, like a self. Okay,
I mean, people listening to
self-congratulatory.
this, yeah, people listening won't see me doing that, but it's yeah,
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
self congratulation is like smug look on your
Okay.
face where you're sort of like smirking,
Right.
not
Okay.
openly smiling.
Okay. Well, there we go. So that's that traumatic story. But I mean, in recent years, we've come to laugh a lot about it and find it quite amusing. I do feel terrible though about the environmental pollution aspect of it,
Oh
but
yeah,
we really were in a desperate situation. Just didn't know
and
what else to do.
and the reason why we had to empty it wasn't because we were that concerned with either leaving it empty or full or whatever. Was that you needed to do another shit?
Oh,
and and
yeah,
like
yeah,
and like because yeah, I was just like, oh yeah, I'll just piss on the canal or piss on the side of the
yeah.
boat.
That's right.
But you were like, oh, I actually need the toilet again, but
Yeah.
there's no more room. It's like
I mean, yeah,
you were touching cloth, Sue.
it was at the time, it was awful. You know, when you're just in a situation and you just think, I really wish I hadn't come out tonight. I really wish I was just at home in bed. Like, yeah,
And I
it
can
was,
remember you were really angry at me because I had convinced you to sleep on this boat.
oh,
And you
yeah,
were
yeah,
like,
that's
if
right.
you just let me go back to that apartment, somebody else would be on here and it wouldn't be our problem. And I was just like, look, we're in this situation now. We've got to solve it. Like,
And that's, that's why years later we separated because of that night.
uh The Swans were the reason. And we did all of this to escape the trauma of having to celebrate Christmas, and we ended up even more traumatized than if we'd just done something traditional.
Anyway, so there ends the tale of the shit-eating swans from however many years ago. Do we have time? Yeah, we've got time to talk about Luigi, haven't we?
Depends what you want to say. I mean, it's a big topic.
Well,
yeah.
Well, I was just going to say I'm fascinated with it, and obviously I think we don't really need to state it, but I think we should state it for the record that neither of us condone murder or manslaughter, the killing of another.
Speak for yourself, Sue.
All right, well, I don't. I mean, I think the killing of any sentient being is should never be the first option. But I'm fascinated by not only the sort of meme-like responses to Luigi Mangione. So in case you're not familiar with the story, the CEO of a big US healthcare provider, or healthcare insurance provider, I should say, was murdered. Well, allegedly, I suppose we should say, because the trial hasn't happened. By a man from New Jersey, right? Called Luigi Mangione. And he, as far as we know, he had been refused, or possibly him and also some of his family members had been refused healthcare, and he was exacting, I suppose in his defense would be that he was exacting revenge on that.
Well, actually his defense is not guilty. He just entered a plea of not guilty.
Okay. But not guilty as he didn't do it, or not guilty in
not
that
sure
his actions were justified?
I suppose they haven't gotten to that yet, but they haven't gone to trial yet. He just had to enter a plea, and he pleaded not guilty.
But what's fascinating to me has been the society's response to it. In many ways, I mean, there's been a very frivolous, light-hearted kind of response to it, because a lot of people are saying Luigi is incredibly attractive and blah, blah, blah. And I've seen lots of, ridiculous responses to the situation. But I think I'm more interested from a sort of sociological perspective. Well, no, not even sociological, but just in a social justice angle, in that I can actually see, and again, remembering what I said earlier about not condoning the killing of any sentient being, I can see to some extent the need for drastic action when faced with such a horrendously unjust situation, and that is, the dominance of US health insurance on people's well-being and access to decent healthcare and the right to live a, pain-free, healthy, inverted commas, existence. And I'm just fascinated by it. Absolutely.
But when you say, obviously, you're saying you don't condone the killing of anybody, but you can see a need for action. What does that action look like? What shape does that take? If we're not going around and exacting revenge, allegedly, what else can we do? Because people have been trying for a long time.
Well, exactly. And it's, to me, because I think I made a note, and let me just see one of the few instances where I've got notes to read for a podcast. But you were talking, this is quite a few weeks ago now, on the podcast, and you were talking about the building near you that's been taken over by squatters. And you said, I wrote it down, you said, it's good to intellectually understand things, but we also need to be physically active. And you were talking about, the need to, because, people... obviously, people have been campaigning about the use of space. The use of space in cities, and about the inadequate housing situation. And I agree that if people squat in an empty building, so they fucking should. It's ridiculous that there are empty buildings and people needing somewhere needing a roof over their heads. It's
Yeah.
criminal that those empty buildings are not being used for that. And so when squatters take over a building like that, I think, well, yeah, absolutely they should. And so I'm just really interested in sort of that, where that fine line, because if you look at it from that angle, like the squatting angle, or if you look at it from the Luigi Mangione angle of, he was fighting for, health equality or health justice, if you like, that's sort of what would traditionally be seen as a left-wing liberal agenda. But you could flip it as well, and you could say that the January 6th riots, when people stormed the Capitol in the US, that was a similar thing, but from a right-wing perspective. Whether or not, I'm not saying they were justified, but people who did that were driven to the point of feeling they needed to take action because they thought that the election had been stolen or whatever, and they were whipped up into a frenzy by Dump and by other, significant actors in that situation. And I'm just, it really fascinates me as to sort of what do we do sometimes when we're confronted with systems that are unfair, that are unjust.
Yeah. I suppose this is when in history you have revolutions. I just came back from staying in Paris for 5 nights. And, Paris, I think, is well known as a society for being outspoken collectively as a group. It has a history of revolution and public disruption. I suppose you could say even recently or currently there. Remember, we were there last year, and there had been these riots or protests that had shut down some of the city, and so I think that when it becomes problematic is that there is proof or there is evidence of this being one of the only ways to enact change or to look out for people's rights is by, the French used to cut the aristocrats' heads off, like I went and saw that site near where I was staying where the guillotine was located at one point. And but then also where that site was also the site of a children's prison. And they built a prison just for children because the other prisons weren't suitable. And I think there were people like from 7 to 12 years old or something.
Is this in current history or is
this is going back to guillotine times.
Oh, okay.
So what year would that have been?
Oh, who knows, 1700 or something?
But as a little aside, did you know that they used the guillotine as a form of corporal punishment, capital punishment, right up until the 1970s in France?
Really?
Yeah, like that. But obviously, like they weren't cutting kings and queens' heads off, and it wasn't done in the public square anymore. But I think like the last person to be executed by the guillotine was like a murderer or a mass murderer who was sentenced to death, and so they did away with it. I think in the 70s.
Wow, that's pretty recent. Yeah,
isn't that wild?
Yeah.
I mean, when did the death penalty end in the UK?
I don't know if it actually has been abolished legally in the UK. I think I don't know. Do you know what? We should not talk about things which we don't know much about.
Well,
I've got a feeling that there actually has been no legal abolition of the death penalty in the UK, but it hasn't been handed down.
Oh yes, there has been.
Oh, there has? Okay.
No executions have occurred in the United Kingdom since the Murder Abolition of Death Penalty Act, 1965.
Oh, okay.
So the last executions were on the 13th of August, 1964.
Yeah, actually, no. Do you know what? I did know that because I remember when Jamie Bulger was killed, and that would have been the 90s, early 90s, late 80s. That's right. There were rumblings then of, about whether we should bring back the death penalty and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And have you seen just recently? This will be old news by the time this comes out. But in the last few days, Joe Biden has commuted, which means I suppose cancelled or
pardoned.
Yeah, but it's they specifically use the term commuted. 37 out of 40 inmates who are currently on the federal death sentence, like on death row. So his pardon, I mean, it's unheard of to do that many, but 37 out of 40 people. And I think the 3 people who weren't commuted, had their sentence commuted, were maybe something to do with terrorism or something to do with that. But
interesting.
But I think that, like we can talk about like the French Revolution. I mean, is that a bad thing that happened?
Well, this is it. This is why I find it so fascinating, because obviously I have some sympathy for the family and the friends of the loved ones of the CEO that was killed, but then I also feel that, I don't know, it's such a difficult thing to talk about because it's so nuanced and it's so delicate. But then there's culpability too. Maybe he didn't deserve to be shot, but maybe you have to think about the infringement on human rights that person was responsible for.
Yeah,
and
also,
you think, well,
like, you and I are both anti-death penalty, right? But yeah, like, what other recourse is there for people in the sort of system that we have, in the sort of society that we have now, where I think it's something like 500,000 people declare bankruptcy because of medical bills, and in the US every year, like 500,000. I think it's about over 500,000, right? Can you imagine the knock-on effect that has? So you would have people having long-term health problems because they're not getting the treatment they need, long-term poverty, like those people are the carers or parents or partners of, who are also having knock-on effects. So they're not getting their health insurance, they're not getting fed nutritious food, they're not getting educated, they're not having like the heating on in winter, they might be homeless. I mean, so it's 500,000 people who are claiming bankruptcy because of medical bills. But then imagine the amount of knock-on effect that has to other people. Like, there could be another 2 million people affected by it.
Well, that's it. I mean, they're the people who get to the point where they have no option but to declare bankruptcy. But there must be, double that amount of people who are just, obviously they don't want to declare bankruptcy, but they're struggling so much to just keep their head above water, to pay the bills and to look after themselves and their family.
And so, old mate who got shot. I don't know his name, and I don't know the name of the company. I'm not being disrespectful to him. I just don't really care that much about the actual individual in this, because to me it's a bigger issue. Like, and even with Louis, what's his name? Luigi. I mean, I don't even know if it's about him. He's become a bit of a celebrity or notorious figure online.
And also, do you think, just as a sort of aside to that, do you think that's to do with his supposed good looks? I mean, I don't think he's that, particularly attractive, but a lot of people seem to think he is. Do you think that, it's sort of like that, the Robin Hood effect of somebody who's speaking for the masses, like the hero, that's not really a word, is it? Heroification of somebody, because they make a good sort of poster person for a cause.
Yeah, and it's just so, it's kind of like reaches into the deepest recesses of our minds, where we think we would like to enact revenge on people for the hardship that we face. Like, if you see what's happening in Gaza, with how many people are being murdered by the IDF, and not only that, but like the decades now and generational grief that this is going to cause.
Yeah, and even hardship. Even the people that aren't getting murdered are being slowly starved to death, and deprived of water, food, and medical, and requirements and stuff like that. So
should those people who are doing that, including the leaders of Israel and leaders of other like militaries that are supporting this, should they face retribution, and what sort of retribution?
Well, I mean,
Like,
yeah,
is there a criminal court? Like, do you know when the Nazis were in power, but then some of them were held accountable? Were any of them given death sentence in any courts, or was it always just life in prison?
I don't know, actually. I'm not sure. Yeah.
And how would you feel about that? Like, if somebody genocided a whole people, like what's happening in Gaza, like, should the people, is there an excuse then for violence or violent retribution?
No, I don't think so, because as we've said before, violence is never the solution to violence, ever. And although in the heat of the moment you might feel incredibly angry and feel that action needs to be taken, I don't condone it. I mean, the International Criminal Court has issued a warrant for the arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu and other figures in Israel's political system, but that's the thing, isn't it? Like we're removed from that. We exist outside of the Israel-Gaza situation, and we feel so powerless about it because what can we do? We can protest, we can sign petitions, we can boycott Israel, we can do this, we can do that, but that none of that seems to stop Benjamin Netanyahu doing what he's doing. And so, at what point?
What about then? How do we do anything then? Like, what do we do to stand up for people who are oppressed? So, for instance, if somebody, I don't know what Luigi Mangione's I don't know what his name is. Mangione?
Mangione? I don't know.
Mangione. I don't know what Luigi's situation is, but imagine if you had a family member or a loved one who passed away from an illness that could have been treatable if they weren't denied health insurance or their health insurance didn't rule against them.
Yeah, exactly.
How would you feel? And would you feel that any sort of retribution, apart from going out and causing harm to those people that made that decision, would you think that anything else was good enough? Like, I don't know. That's why I have a lot of not sympathy, but I have empathy. Like, I think, like, I don't know what this kid's situation was. I don't know what he went through, if it was himself or a loved one, or if it was nothing. Maybe he was just like, maybe he has mental health issues and he wanted to kill someone. I don't know. But if the case was that he was looking to enact revenge because somebody died or lived in extreme pain from lack of treatment.
And it's also really, it's desperately sad that this situation has highlighted one family, one individual's struggle, but there are thousands of millions perhaps of people in situations in the US, and it becomes representative of a much bigger problem. And it's nothing new. People know. It's like just accepted fact now that the healthcare system in the US is incredibly unjust.
But people go to work in the US with broken bones because they can't afford health insurance that will cover that. Or their health insurance will say, no, for some reason that doesn't qualify for this treatment. And so they can't afford the $5,000 to $10,000 it would cost to go to hospital. So they let the bone reset without getting treated. And people get sick and they get infections. And
it's also why the opioid epidemic has become so big in the US, because people have to work through, extreme chronic pain.
Or untreated depression and mental health conditions as well. Yeah. Also, the people also don't get healthcare even if they're paying for healthcare. So they get it denied even when they're paying their insurance, their premiums. They say, oh, yeah, actually, no, that doesn't cover that, the one you're on. So they might be paying $500 a month.
Yeah.
And living in poverty and then still getting denied.
It really reminds me a lot of, I was just having this conversation a couple of weeks ago with friends about, the train tracks or the tram tracks, sort of the philosophical question around the tram tracks. It's like, if you've got a tram or a train, imagines going along tracks, it comes to a set of points, the line divides. If you've got 10 people tied to the tracks on one side or one person tied to the tracks on the other side, which way do you make the train go? And well, most people would say, you make it go on the side that only has one person, because it's better that one person dies than 10 people die.
So what if this dude who was shot and killed, what if he was personally responsible for decisions that resulted in the death of, say, 100,000 people over the last 20 years?
Exactly.
Right?
I'm fascinated by it, because I think we're getting to a point now, and I think we're going to see more things like this happening, because more and more people are feeling completely excluded from the political situation. People are feeling disengaged and unrepresented, and they are going to resort to more and more extreme situations. When in recent history has there been, I actually have lost count, has it been 2 or 3 attempts at assassinating Trump? Was it 3? I think it's...
I don't know. And I don't even know if they were real or not.
I know,
I don't know.
That's a whole nother episode, I suppose. But,
I think attempted murder of politicians and presidents is more common than we know.
Really?
I think we forget stuff. I mean, Ronald Reagan was shot.
Once, though, right? Once.
Yeah, but I mean, that's enough. And maybe there were other attempts on his life as well.
Maybe.
And we remember the ones where people died, like JFK.
When was the last time the U.S. Capitol was stormed? I mean,
yeah, but if you look back through U.S. history, there are a lot of uprisings and things. We just forget stuff. We forget stuff. I mean, there have been bombings on government buildings. There have been, Harvey Milk was killed. Like, there have been a lot of political uprisings. We just remember, we've got very short memories as humans.
I guess.
And a lot of it happened before we were into knowing stuff. But, there have been like suppression of like entire, what's that whole thing where that black run town or majority run black town was like bombed by white supremacists and stuff? And
in what period of history?
Not that long ago.
About?
Like not that long ago, probably just before we were born.
No,
and like there's stuff that has happened like that, which people just absolutely don't have any idea that it happened. Or you would speak to most people, they wouldn't know that Ronald Reagan was shot. Actually shot, not just attempted to be shot. They wouldn't know. Or, there were probably attempts on, or credible threats at least, on every president, but it made the news and then disappeared. I mean, look how quickly, we've spoken about this before, how quickly people have forgotten about the Trump stuff. And he was supposedly made contact with by shrapnel or something. I mean, and nobody even talks about it. We don't even know who did that. We don't even know, like, apparently somebody died on that podium. Somebody else was shot in the crowd. Never heard anything about it ever again. And I mean, I listen to a lot of crappy news about politics, and I've never heard anything about any more insights into that. Stuff like this happens quite a lot, but we forget about stuff.
It is really, it's just, it feels like a lot of people around the world are getting to a sort of breaking point where they have tried to maybe protest or do peaceful resistance to things, or try to express their will through their votes, and they still feel complete. And maybe it feels like it's becoming more of an issue because of the polarization of society, that something we've talked a lot about on this podcast in previous episodes, that maybe we are getting to a desperate situation now where people think, well, we have to try a different tactic. We have tried peaceful resistance. It's not working. We need to take a different approach. So,
I think humans are too comfortable as a species to actually take notice of much things. So things like this shooting will happen, and then we'll go back to being complacent and docile. And
maybe.
I mean,
I don't know.
Look what's happened. There have been revolutions. There have been civil wars. and then we go back to being passive consumers who put up with being subjugated and oppressed. I mean, it's happened. It happens so maybe there'll be a revolution, and then maybe it will go back. Who knows? Or maybe we're in a revolution. Maybe historians will look back and go, oh yeah, there was this time where the handful of public figures were shot in public, and that was a form of a modern, or that, of that time. It was a modern revolution.
There was a book I read 2 years ago. I really should have written down the title. I can't remember what it was called, but it was a look at what the next 50 years will be like in terms of environmental activism. And it was talking about how people like environmental activists will start taking more and more extreme action. And we're starting to see that now with the Just Stop Oil protests.
Yeah.
But we have to wrap up in a minute. And I do want to just clarify. I in last week's episode, or was it last week or 2 weeks ago, I think, actually, I made a mistake in the podcast, and I was talking about, I was in that episode, I was saying confirmation bias, and listening back to the episode, what the concept I was referring to is cognitive dissonance. So they're two different things, and I think there is a little bit of overlap perhaps, but I was talking about pet food and the sort of fetishization or speciesism, so I struggle to say that word. And I was saying confirmation bias. What I actually was meant to say was cognitive dissonance.
For the record, I would like it said that I think I said, I don't think that's the right term you want.
Did you? For the record, I don't think you did. But anyway,
somebody go back and make a clip and tag us in it.
Oh, I'll go back. Because I'm petty. I'll go back. And I just wanted to correct myself and apologize for my misuse of the term confirmation bias.
The listeners and I will decide what retribution you deserve for making that mistake.
You missed a bit. I think we should wrap up then. So
that's it.
What else do you need to tell our listeners or viewers, Sean? Anything?
No, that's it. I would like to talk a little bit more about Paris next time. There's a few interesting topics. I'm also looking for vampire movie recommendations. If anyone has any, please let me know. Put it in the comments. And I'd like to give a shout out to Helen, who left us a nice message wishing us a happy festive season. So I hope you're well, and thanks for watching. And you are a regular, so it's nice to have you with us.
Thank you for your continued support. I just need to mention quickly that in just a few days after this episode is released, my EP, Addicted to Desire, will be live on Spotify and on Amazon Music, on Apple Music. And please listen to it, download it, stream it, share it, add it to your playlists, use it in your Instagram and TikTok posts, and any sort of support is very, very much appreciated. So
especially if you know anyone who works at a radio station who would be willing to play it, maybe ask them if they would give it a shout.
Yes, please do. But we can talk about that in more detail in the future. But in the meantime, go to joshandthejumpstarts.com or just find me on Instagram, and we will
and follow me on Instagram as well if you want to see what I eat at Fatco Vegan. But well, nice chatting, and go back and check if I did say that wasn't the correct term.
I will,
and I will speak to you soon, and everyone else, we'll see you next week. Yeah.
Don't forget to take your makeup off.
Oh yeah, before bedtime, before I put my CPAP on.
All right. Thanks, folks. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.